Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth Hacker's Memory. Bit of a mouthful. This game is a follow-up to the original Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth game. It's kind of Cyber Sleuth 1.5, and I'm unsure if playing the whole of this game immediately after finishing the original Cyber Sleuth was a good idea, and might sway my opinions in some places. But it's been a couple of weeks now, so I'm going to try my best to leave my Kowloon maze burnout at the door. Let's have a chat about Hacker's Memory. And as always, light spoilers ahead, just tapping the sign now. So Digimon Hacker's Memory punches in with an anime cutscene. I'm a little bit obsessed with these, I'm not gonna lie, they look so good. And we're introduced to our protagonist for the game, Kaisuke. We play the role of a hacker in this one, as opposed to a cyber detective in the first. But we're in the same world, with the same cyberspace areas, with a new addition here and there. We'll get to those in a bit. So we're in familiar shoes from the off here. It definitely feels like picking Cyber Sleuth back up with a few extra toys added to the mix. Our character has had their Eden account stolen, and joins up with a team of hackers known as Hoodie to try and find the culprit. As I said, the setting is the same, but our base of operations is different. We work from a manga cafe in the city. This was a super interesting location for me because not too long ago I did fall down a YouTube rabbit hole of watching videos on these kinds of manga cafes, and they're tiny cubicles where some people literally live and work from in Japan. They look cozy, but at the same time there's zero privacy in these places. You feel like the ultimate inconvenience to humanity just by sneezing once or twice. And the game throws us into a familiar gameplay loop right away, as we start chipping away at the cases that come in on our online notice board. Interesting that we're still doing the cases thing, even though we're not a detective in this one. They've just kept the framework from Cyber Sleuth. Not a fan of that, but it at least cuts the game up into manageable chunks. As I mentioned, we're essentially back in Cyber Sleuth. I want to say around 85% of the areas in Hacker's Memory are repurposed from the original Cyber Sleuth title. The real world locations are still the standout locations for me by a country mile. You get a real tangible slice of the city in each of these locations. As with Cyber Sleuth, I do wish there had been a little more to them than simply 2 streets in most cases, but it's just about enough to immerse me within the world. And of course, there's the same cyberspace areas from Cyber Sleuth also returning, Eden and Kowloon. But we do also have an extra underlayer to Kowloon in this game, called Under Kowloon, creative, which just looks like more Kowloon. It's more maze to navigate through. These get very repetitive and tedious, but conceptually I kind of understand why they're like this. It's not supposed to look welcoming. It's the seedy underbelly of Eden's system. There are a couple of different looking cyberspace areas, but nothing to write home about. We've got a new story in the same setting here, which is absolutely fine as long as it's worth paying for a whole new game that takes place in that same world. So speaking of the story, Hacker's Memory tells more of a personal one. In the original Cyber Sleuth, our protagonist isn't so much the subject of the story. They involve themselves in the story. In Hacker's Memory, our protagonist is directly concerned in the story, because it's his Eden account that gets stolen at the beginning. I like the whole good hacker versus bad hacker narrative. It adds a really interesting depth to the term. Like, being a hacker isn't a one-dimensional thing. There is internal politics going on within that hacker sphere. It's cool to see all of that come into play here. Team Hoodie is the heart of the game. We have a tight little group of misfits here, each with their own standout traits, fighting for the right things even though there's no personal glory to be had at the end of it. And a lot happens to the members of our little friend group here. I'm keeping things spoiler light, but it can get pretty heavy at times. Crazy to think, considering all that this game is a sidequel, is that even a word, to the original Cyber Sleuth game. All of this is going on simultaneously. There are little things dropped in there that if you played Cyber Sleuth before this, will provide a nice little aha moment, but you can absolutely play this as a standalone title as well. Again, same as with Cyber Sleuth. Sometimes you have to take a minute to jog your memory with what's going on, because there's a lot of filler between the main story beats. Not as much as with Cyber Sleuth though, I feel. There are 2 chapters less in this game, and a couple that just feature the one main case, so it is a little more streamlined from my experience. But you're going to want to do those side cases when they're available anyway, because they're good for grinding levels if nothing else. I think probably the best thing that comes out of the story is how it highlights hacker culture. The nuance and volatility inside a subset of society that you would generally tar with the same giant brush. The little dramas and betrayals and personal motivations. It's a whole set of movements within a movement. Super interesting to see all that play out. And the story isn't predictable either. It takes a couple of twists and turns that I certainly did not see coming. I had a couple of really late nights on this game because I wanted to play just that bit further to see how things resolved themselves. Mechanically, this game is, again, the same as Cyber Sleuth overall. The way you obtain and train and battle Digimon is the same for the most part. There is a Digimarket in this one where you can literally buy Digimon instead of having to scan them over and over again until you get to 100%. This actually becomes a story point in the middle of the game, where the ethics of capturing and selling Digimon is brought into question, and you basically have the choice of getting it shut down or defending its existence and keeping it running. It's a real moral versus convenience kind of thing. When it comes to battles, there's a new type of battle in Hacker's Memory called domination battles, which are a fun concept. You're warping across a battlefield a bit like a chessboard and claiming spaces for your team. And once you claim enough spaces, and enough points from claiming those spaces, you win. Easy enough concept, simple enough really. Take over all the spaces that award 5 or 10 points, and generally you've won. There aren't a crazy amount of these throughout the game, and they do provide a bit of respite from the usual battles, especially seeing as I do most of them on auto battle anyway, so I didn't mind these popping up here and there. Sometimes you'll have to fight a wall as well. You heard that right. Some of the barriers that you usually have to use a hacking skill to get past, in this game you have to battle. As long as your Digimon aren't crazy underleveled though, you won't have a problem with these. So Hacker's Memory doesn't reinvent the wheel mechanically, but it does add a few extra things to the mix that make the game more varied than the original Cyber Sleuth. There are more Digimon in Hacker's Memory as well, around 100 more, I think it's just a little less. That was a natural thing to do. I'm actually really surprised it wasn't more. Maybe it was a file size thing. I have to continuously remind myself that this was originally a PS Vita game. But a good chunk of extra Digimon to choose from is always a good thing. The music is widely ported across from Cyber Sleuth, which makes sense because this is the same world, and the events of this are taking place at the same time, so you want the vibe to be consistent in that sense. But there are some additions, particularly for the new features and areas like domination battles and the Hoodie Cafe. Yeah though, it's going to feel very familiar if you've played Cyber Sleuth. I tie music to my game experiences massively. Like when I hear certain tracks from a game's OST, they'll always bring back very vivid memories of things that happened during my playthrough while that music was playing. So it was sort of strange hearing that music again and instantly being transported back to Cyber Sleuth. So now I have kind of a double memory with a lot of these tracks. One from Cyber Sleuth and one from Hacker's Memory. I just hope they don't start splicing into each other. Otherwise I'm going to end up having details from these games mixed up with each other. Solid music though. After playing both games, I'm definitely catching myself humming a lot of the melodies to myself when I'm walking around the house. Hacker's Memory is a perfectly serviceable complement to the original Cyber Sleuth game, while also standing alone in its own right. You could play these two games in whichever order you wanted to. I still would recommend playing Cyber Sleuth first, otherwise you'll feel like you've lost features from Hacker's Memory, instead of Hacker's Memory adding features on top of Cyber Sleuth. This game is the best kind of more of the same you could ask for. It doesn't swing for the fences with anything mind-blowing or overly grand, but it adds depth to what already worked, and it uses it to tell a more intimate story, with, in my opinion, a more compelling protagonist, set in a world that, for its time, feels decently active and lived in. The shortcomings are very real as well. I think sometimes the game uses the skeleton of Cyber Sleuth a little too much. I think seeing as we're not a detective in this game, they really could have done away with the detective case system and just had a more linear progression format through the story. I don't really like how closely tied it is to it. It's annoyed me how many times I felt the need to mention the original Cyber Sleuth in this video, but I felt like it was needed for proper context. These games are very much married together, and always will be. But if you've played Cyber Sleuth and enjoyed it, this is an essential follow-up play, 100%. So as always, I'll pass the mic over to you guys now, and ask you what you thought of Digimon Hacker's Memory. Was it an enjoyable follow-up to Cyber Sleuth for you? Maybe you didn't play Cyber Sleuth and jumped straight to this. That'd be an interesting perspective to get. Regardless, drop all your thoughts down in the comments, I'd love to hear them. Please do hit the like button while you're down there, subscribe for more Digimon videos. Thank you so much for watching, I'll catch you in the next one.